So as you guys can tell, I'm in a very, very different location than normal. Yesterday's video, I hated the lighting in it and it was very difficult to record on. I am recording on my phone today because my camera is dead and I forgot to bring the charger, but I should be able to get it by like Wednesday's video, which will be my Loki episode 5 review. But anyway, all that doesn't really matter. Today we are talking about The Batman Who Laughs, and this is my second Batman comic that I've read, and I already reviewed year 1. I'll link it up here, and I absolutely loved it. I just sits down. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and yes, this is not the most comfortable place, but it's some sketchy park, and it's the only place where I could set up my mic and my phone and everything. But oh well. The Batman Who Laughs was very interesting, and spoiler warning, when I went into this, I knew almost nothing about it. I knew that just by looking at the cover here that Batman had some weird thing going on, because, you know, he's got this weird smile, he's got this green kind of blood spit stuff dripping out of his mouth, and his eyes are red. And then on the front, I had no idea. I didn't know really who that was, and I apologize for the wind and all that, but then I realized that that is The Batman Who Laughs, which is obviously the title here. And knowing nothing about the character is how I suggest going into it. Again, I didn't even know he was a character, but that is how I suggest going into it. So if you're watching this and you haven't already clicked off and you haven't read the comic, I do suggest clicking off, and I really enjoyed this. So I don't know if I enjoyed this more so than Batman Year 1. It was definitely more detailed, more kind of gritty, and a lot more violent. And I think it came out like last year or the year before, like 2019 or 2020 or something. So that's probably why, because obviously Batman Year 1 came out in the late 80s, like 87, 86, something like that. I'll correct myself on the screen. But this one was really great, so I'll finally start, actually talking about it and stop saying this is really great. I'd say my favorite aspect was probably the action sequences, because they were really well done. I really liked how they were drawn out. Again, this is only the second, technically third comic book I read, but only second one that I remember, because I talked about how I had read one back in grade 1 or grade 2 or whatever when I was very young, and it was some Spider-Man and Wolverine one. I showed it in my year 1 review, but this one is very different from that, and I think that that's a very good thing. I don't remember that one at all, but there's just so many moments where the blood is just coming out of all these characters, and it's really great, and like their faces are ripped up. And one of the things that this one deals with a lot is this whole like dark I'm gonna say multiverse, that's very Marvel, but like I think it's called like the Metalverse or something like that, where there are multiple Bruce Waynes. So in this, I would say one of my issues is that sometimes it can feel like almost like the end of like Scooby-Doo, where they they unmask them, they're like, oh, this is actually the bad guy. What they do here sometimes is like, oh, I'm the real Batman, I'm the real Bruce Wayne, psych, I'm the Batman Who Laughs, psych, I'm the Batman Who Laughs, and they do it like, there were maybe like one too many times where I know they brought in a lot of Batmans here, and I liked how the real Batman Who Laughs was kind of bringing them in, but I will say sometimes it did feel a little bit kind of all packed in there, if that makes sense. Like, I was like, oh, okay, again, and there were times where I think it really worked. And yes, if you can't tell, this is not the most comfortable thing, and I might start just randomly swinging on this. I know I was before, but I really liked what they did with the connection between Bruce Wayne and Alfred too, because obviously they have a very strong connection, and here that's really shown, because towards the end, again, I said spoilers, where the real Bruce Wayne has finally been like the Batman Who Laughs like jabs him with the serum that he's that turns him into the Batman Who Laughs. And side note, I just love how they take half the Joker and like half Batman, like they're taking basically what comes out of the Joker and turning that into people. I think that's so interesting and so smart. But as he's like slowly turning, Alfred's like, no, like you can't keep going through this, because if he keeps fighting, it gets the blood pumping, it gets all the serum going between all of his blood cells. I hope no one comes up here, that would be awkward. And Bruce Wayne is just like determined to basically beat the Batman Who Laughs, even though he is kind of worried about becoming him. And even though, sorry if the angle changed there a bit, my phone ran out of storage. I'm not used to recording on my phone, and my phone doesn't have a lot of storage. But back to what I was saying, even when, I think this is what I was saying at least, even when Bruce Wayne has like, he should have fully turned into the Batman Who Laughs, there's still that part that's like fighting it. Like, I think it is part of like the reason he is Batman, that's all like goes back to his parents, but it's kind of, I can't think of the word to describe it, but there's like the heart that, you know, that he needs to be Batman. And I know it's a terrible way to describe it. And I think that kind of kicks in, like the common senses and all that, and it really works. I thought the ending was brilliant. There are times in the middle, as I said, where it can get a little convoluted with all the different Batmans, but I also really like what they did with Jim Gordon and James too, because James plays a more prominent role here than he did in year one. And the reason I read this one after year one is because somebody had told me read this one after it. Just like, I don't know, it was one of those suggestions that was just like, I was like, what should I read next? And someone said this, and a lot of like big hardcore comic fans will probably be like, oh, you jumped too far forward, which I think could be fair. The next one I'm going to read is The Long Halloween, which I already own, and maybe people will be like, oh no, don't read that one yet. I've heard it's like the best one, and I know there's already one part of the movie adaptation. The second part's coming out, I think, this month or maybe the next one, but I think it is this month. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, the reason I wanted to read this was just because I heard it was half Batman, half Joker, but what I didn't realize is they were explaining that's what the Batman Who Laughs is. But anyway, Jim Gordon and James Gordon. I know I'm going all over the place again. I apologize. I have no notes or anything, obviously. I think that's kind of obvious. I really like towards the end where they have like the Grim Knight, who kind of, I think, yeah, that's what they call him, and I hope that me moving around doesn't affect the sound. You see kind of James, and he's kind of getting turned a little bit, like not evil, but Jim and James, like they come out, James and James technically, they come out in like the not Nightwing, like I think it's like the Batman Beyond kind of suits, like, you know, like the full black, like everything, including like full face here, and then just like the red mark on the chest here, and they come out in those. But then as like the Grim Knight's kind of, some dogs barking, as the Grim Knight's kind of like beating Jim Gordon down, James is like, he seems like he's gonna kind of do something bad, but then he does start beating up the Grim Knight. Somebody's having fun. These are the benefits of filming in public. Please do not come up here. But I think it really worked. And as I said again, kind of just to wrap things up here, I know this isn't really like a straight up review. It's more of just a discussion of it, which is totally fine. I mean, it is technically a review. I did love this. I think that the action and everything, and there's a lot of emotion here. You know, I feel like in almost every Batman tale, they're gonna talk about his parents, and every time they mention it, Batman tale, why did I say it like that? Batman story, they're gonna mention his parents. And for me, it'll always kind of hit hard. There was like a more violent kind of take on that scene that I actually read out in my last review of Batman Year One, where he's like, yes, father, yes, I will become a bat. There's like a quick, like 1 or 2 page thing here that I really enjoyed. And I think it's paced pretty well. I read it in 3 increments, basically. Like, I easily could have read it in one, and I did read Year One in like 1 increment, ironically. But I read it like a few nights ago up to maybe like chapter 3 or like whatever, like number 3. I don't know what to exactly to refer to it as. And then I read some yesterday, and then I read a lot more today, just because we're at a cottage, we're away at a beach. So I was reading it on the beach, and I'm not one to read, but I mean, it's Batman, it's comics, so I will read it now. I'm starting to really get into it, and I'm really excited for The Long Halloween. And then after that, I'm probably going to go to The Killing Joke. Now, I have seen the movie adaptation, but I wasn't really a fan of it, but I just know that the comic is supposed to be much better than that. But The Batman Who Laughs was a really entertaining, really like gruesome, gritty take on the characters of Batman, Bruce Wayne, the Batman Who Laughs. I find a very interesting villain. I love how they mixed that my favorite character of all time, my favorite villain of all time, together into one character, and then had Batman and multiple Bruce Waynes and all that face off against it. And I'm going to give The Batman Who Laughs a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it, and I assume that if you're watching this, you've read it, so I want to know what you think of it down below. I just heard it's like highly regarded as one of the best already, and I feel like it's almost a instant classic when it comes to these Batman comics. I'm not sure, or maybe this video will get 5 views. I guess we'll have to find out. And again, I apologize for the alternate location. I hope it's at least better than the one I was in yesterday for my Metallica Creeping Death reaction, because that one, oh, it was tough to film in that room. And yes, again, I did film on my phone, so I apologize for like the different frame rate and all that. I should be back to my regular DSLR soon. But what do you think of The Batman Who Laughs? Where does it rank amongst the other Batman comics? Next up is The Long Halloween. I will review that as soon as I'm done it. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.